A few months ago, I was helping my cousin Marcus move apartments. Nothing dramatic, just a Saturday of carrying boxes down 2 flights of stairs in July heat. At one point, I picked up a box that was heavier than it looked, and when I set it down to catch my breath, I noticed what was actually in it. An air fryer, still in the box, tags on. A pasta maker, same thing. A set of resistance bands with the plastic wrap still sealed. A pair of hiking boots that looked like they'd never touched dirt. I didn't say anything, it wasn't my business, and everybody's got a box like that somewhere. But I thought about it the whole drive home because Marcus isn't a big spender in any dramatic sense. He doesn't lease luxury cars or take extravagant vacations. He's just, like a lot of us, carrying around a slow accumulation of small decisions that never individually felt like a problem and never got added up. That's what I want to talk about today, not the dramatic financial mistakes, the quiet ones, the habits that don't look like anything is wrong, that never trigger an alarm, and that keep a lot of otherwise responsible people from ever getting ahead. Here are 10 I keep noticing, including a few I've caught myself doing. Habit 1. They buy the item, not the plan. The air fryer wasn't purchased because Marcus had a plan to eat healthier 5 nights a week. It was purchased because it looked good in a video and the moment felt motivating. The gym membership, the meal kit subscription, the online course, bought in a burst of intention, used a handful of times, then quietly abandoned once the initial motivation faded. Buying the item feels like progress. It isn't. The plan is the thing that actually changes outcomes, and the item without the plan is just an expensive placeholder for intention. Habit 2. They let small subscriptions multiply unchecked. One streaming service turns into 4. A cloud storage plan upgrades itself automatically. A free trial becomes a paid tier because nobody canceled it in time. Each one, alone, is $5 or $10, genuinely too small to notice on a bank statement. Added together, most households are paying far more in recurring monthly subscriptions than they'd guess if asked cold. It's not one big leak, it's a dozen small ones, all draining quietly at once. Habit 3. They round up their treat-yourself moments. A treat becomes a treat plus something else while you're there. A quick stop becomes a full shopping trip because you're already in the store. This isn't about denying yourself nice things, it's the rounding up pattern where the actual purchase always ends up a little bigger than the one that was planned, every single time without exception. Habit 4. They never calculate cost per use. The hiking boots that never touch dirt cost roughly the same, divided by 0 uses, as an infinite amount of money. A $200 jacket worn twice is mathematically a worse purchase than a $400 jacket worn 200 times. But almost nobody does this math before buying because the sticker price is the only number that ever gets considered. Habit 5. They keep things just in case. The resistance bands, still sealed, sit in the closet because maybe one day. This isn't really about the bands. It's a pattern of buying against an imagined future self who was more disciplined, more active, more organized than the actual person doing the buying. And that imagined self ends up costing the real one a lot of money. Habit 6. They upgrade before something breaks. The phone that still works fine gets replaced because a new model came out. The car that runs perfectly gets traded in because it's starting to feel old. Nothing is actually broken. The upgrade is driven by boredom or comparison, not necessity, and it's one of the most consistent, quiet wealth drains there is, precisely because it never feels reckless in the moment. Habit 7. They don't track where convenience fees add up. Delivery fees, service charges, the convenience premium on pre-cut, pre-made, pre-done things that cost significantly less in their raw form. Individually tiny, collectively one of the largest invisible categories in a lot of household budgets. Invisible specifically because no single charge ever feels worth questioning. Habit 9. They confuse on sale with needed. A 30% discount on something you weren't planning to buy isn't savings. It's spending that a marketing department successfully reclassified as savings in your head. The habit of buying things because they're on sale rather than because they were already on the list quietly redirects money away from things that were actually planned. Habit 10. They never revisit old decisions. The insurance policy set up 5 years ago, the phone plan chosen once and never reviewed, the bank account paying almost no interest sitting there because switching felt like a hassle. None of these are dramatic mistakes at the moment they're made. They become expensive purely through years of nobody going back to check if a better option now exists. Habit 11. They round every number down in their head. There's one more habit I didn't mention yet, and it's one I catch myself doing more than I'd like to admit. It's the way we round numbers down in our head before we've even finished the sentence. Something costs like $15 when it's actually 18. A bill is around 200 when it's actually 234. Nobody's lying on purpose. The brain just naturally rounds toward the number that feels less alarming. Individually, none of that rounding matters, but do it across every purchase, every bill, every mental estimate you make in a week, and you end up operating with a picture of your finances that's consistently a little rosier than reality. You feel like you're spending less than you are, because in your head you actually are. The fix isn't complicated, but it is uncomfortable at first. Round up, not down. When you're not sure, assume the higher number. It costs you nothing to occasionally overestimate. It costs you real money to consistently underestimate. Habit 12. They wait for a bigger paycheck to start fixing anything. This is the last one, and I think it might be the most common of all 12. The plan, unspoken but very real, is to deal with all of this once things are a little more comfortable, once the raise comes through, once the busy season ends, once there's just a little more breathing room. But here's what I've noticed, both in my own life and in people I've talked to about this. The habits don't wait for the bigger paycheck to show up. They just get bigger right alongside it. More income tends to mean more subscriptions, not fewer. A nicer version of the same convenience spending, not less of it. The gap between what comes in and what actually gets saved doesn't close on its own just because the number at the top of the pay stub got larger. The fixes we've talked about today, the cost per use math, the subscription audit, catching yourself mid-upgrade, none of them require more money to start. They require starting. At whatever income you have right now, this week, not the income you're hoping to have eventually. What I told Marcus. I never bought up the box of unused stuff directly, but a few weeks later, over coffee, I told him about the cost per use idea, just casually, not as a lecture. He got quiet for a second, the way people do when something lands somewhere they weren't expecting it to. A month after that, he mentioned, almost as an aside, that he'd done a receipts audit, his words, going through his last 3 months of spending and just circling anything he genuinely couldn't remember buying or using. He said the total surprised him. He didn't tell me the number, and I didn't ask. That's really the whole exercise I'd ask you to try this week. Not a dramatic budget overhaul, just an honest look at the last 3 months. What's still sealed, still unused, still auto-renewing quietly in the background, and one honest decision about each thing you find. None of these 10 habits are dramatic on their own. That's exactly why they work. Nothing ever feels like the problem. It's only when you add them up that you can see where the money's actually been going the whole time. We'll see you in the next one.